welcome to my very first guest podcast. This is the launch of Underdogs in Africa, and we're super excited to engage in some great, sometimes shitty, but some really cool conversation today. We've got a phenomenal guest. I mean, he's done the Ironman, he's got a PhD, funny guy. I saw pictures at some point with King Charles on LinkedIn. I'm like, who is this? And why is he not my friend? He needs to be one. He needs to come and sit on this podcast and tell us all about that. More specifically, he's building this super cool, super dope business in Ghana. And we can't wait to get into it. The purpose of Underdogs is really to talk about the realities of Africa, the realities of the stories behind the founders, behind the businesses, and the journeys that they go along, as well as their experience. Highlight that, create some visibility, create some learnings and insights and teachings. And I've got the whole Scale Media team behind the cameras. It's very nerve-wracking. Don't make too much of a noise, guys, because I can hear you in my microphone and headset. I guess this is how Trevor does it. But yeah, I'll ping you at some point. Don't mind if I tag you in every single video to give me some guidance on how to do this successfully. But it's my first one, so a very big welcome, like anybody's in the room to clap. You guys clap for Tarek, who is the founder and CEO of Affinity in Ghana. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your grace in terms of my organization skills. Thank you for allowing us to be super last minute, disorganized and set up while you're sitting and waiting. I really appreciate that. But I guess this is the life of a startup.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Firstly, thank you for being my friend. I don't know if anyone knows this. I'm going to start talking about Miranda before I get into me, because this podcast is mostly about me as well. The first time I met Miranda, you're a big shot. Everyone knows who you are. Everyone does. Every single person that I meet, any startup, any investor, any service provider always knows who you are as well too. But the first time I met Miranda, you were working at Visa. I got kind of nervous because I'm meeting the head of Fintech for Africa, and I'm, breaking it. Let's be honest here. I get on a call with Miranda, apparently who wants to be my friend. I just discovered this. And the first thing she tells me is, why should I talk to you as a Fintech? You don't know how to make money from payments. But as everyone says, rejection is the greatest aphrodisiac. She actually threw the gauntlet down, and that made me want to be your friend after that. Let's be honest. But thank you for having me. I'm really grateful, and it's been an amazing experience already being here with you in Cape Town.
Thank you. I think though I can't believe I said that.
I loved it. I actually wanted to get to know you more. You weren't just sitting there as a service provider giving me a product, right? I was like, we didn't know what we were doing. We still kind of don't know what you're doing. That's what happens when you're a founder, right? You know, half the time you have an idea, you're ideating with other people, and when there are experts around you, of which obviously you're one of them, your role and responsibility as part of the ecosystem is to help navigate. Yeah. And you did that very well.
Thank you. I try. I aim to please. But so we're at the Tech Fest. Mm-hmm. You look a bit tired. Mm-hmm. Joking. So how was that journey for you, by the way? How is it navigating the waters of this huge event? How is it? I don't know what's going on. Okay, sorry. That's normal. Yeah, I got somebody telling me to carry on. How was it just navigating this big event? It's the first time I've been to AfricaCom, and there's a lot of moving parts. Mm-hmm. The space is very big. Mm-hmm. The actual event itself is very big. Lots of different topics. How did you navigate it? What did you choose to focus on, and why?
So I guess I was a little lucky because I have 3 speaking engagements. So everything was centered around those engagements, so selfish. But I'm an introvert, and I'm actually quite shy. I'm okay doing things like one-on-one or with a small group, but my energy gets drained quite quickly when I'm in loud rooms with tons of people around me. So you have to be very selective. Historically, I would have done a lot more. I would have easily gotten tired and pushed through, but I'm now firmly in my 40s. I've learned how I operate as a human being and what maximizes my energy. And what's really important is actually quality over quantity. So it was very specific in terms of people that I wanted to meet, people I wanted to reconnect with, you obviously being one of them as well too. and focusing on things that made more sense. So diving a bit deeper into certain subjects and meetings, and actually spending a lot of time doing a bit of everything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so introverts don't like being around people. Lots of speaking engagements, and it's 5:30, and you're sitting on a podcast with me. And damn quality.
But
Thank you.
But it's not necessarily the people thing. I get overwhelmed quite quickly, and your energy gets drained. That's what a definition of an introvert is, right? Where'd you get your energy from? From within yourself, or from outside your outside environment? Extrovert, it's sort of like imagine two toys. One's like chargeable, and the other one's solar. In the beginning of the day, the one that's been charging all night has a ton of energy in the beginning of the day, and it kind of gets depleted throughout the day, right? Whereas a solar-powered toy gets stronger as the day goes on. That's basically what an introvert versus an extrovert is. So I have a limited amount of energy. I need to know where to put it, and that's important. But what I have to be very kind of open about is I love to talk. But I love to talk about like solid things. I can't do small talk. I want to go deep. You want to have conversations. You want to learn about payments, about fintech, about digital banking, about leadership, which is something that I'm absolutely obsessed of. You're a founder as well too. You're launching a new podcast. You've convinced an amazing team to follow you on your journey. It's about understanding what your North Star is, what your values are as an individual, and then adding on top of that the ability to convince other people to join you on that journey as well too. And that's very important.
I love that so much, and I can't help but think, where does that come from?
There's an amazing coach that I met last year, and so I stole it from her. But it's funny because she talks about leadership in like sort of 3 stages. The first is lead self. So who are you? What do you stand for? What do you want to do? What is your why, basically? For me in particular, it's affinity and supporting small businesses. Then the second is lead others. You then have to convince a bunch of people to join you on that journey, be it team members, a regulator that you have to lobby, investors, board members, customers, of course, too.
Of course.
And then the fourth thing is kind of getting into the realm of leading systems, where you're developing policy and you're trying to understand how processes work. And that's also very instrumental when it comes to scale for a tech business.
Yeah, I mean, again, if I go one level deeper, so where does that come from? Was that self-taught along your journey, prior to your business coach, along the way? Was it the environment that you grew up in? Was it your background?
I think it's a number of things. I'm naturally inclined to be overambitious because, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and I traveled to the UK where I was incredibly othered for having a weird accent, coming from a weird country. It was the 80s, 90s and stuff at the time. And all that stuff fuels you. It's stuff that when you look back, you think to yourself, I'm different to everyone else, but it's actually also your superpower.
Yeah.
So I think there's very much a part of that naturally came from my environment, from my upbringing, and wanting to be an entrepreneur. But in terms of like the coaching and the personal development, it actually came at a point where I was burning out early last year. There's only so much that you can learn and you can collect. And at one point as a leader, you think, I have a limited amount of tools around me, and you need to acquire new ones. And being aware of that, aware of asking for help, aware of figuring out, I keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, and I'm not getting the result that I want. What is wrong there? It takes someone that's quite brave to be able to do something like that. And so I sought help last year. I spoke to a couple of coaches, which was really incredible, just to try and understand me as an individual, where I got my energy from, what kind of leader I was, what kind of people as a result I needed around me to strengthen the business, which was very important. And that was the starting process. But it came from a place of emergency, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's, it happens to a lot of people. Like I was in that situation recently also. And it was inside of my journey transitioning from working at a tech business where, I started, and you build a real family in these small businesses, right? It's people who really look out for you. They open up opportunities for you. They give you a chance. They teach you core values, along that career or professional journey. And then it's time for you to open up your wings and fly. And so I did that when I joined in my previous role at Visa. And I realized that wasn't necessarily the right org or environment for me, because my skills are better suited in a different place, right? That doesn't mean that I lift my foot off the pedal. you keep going. During that time, unrelated to the actual role or organization, I mean, I got COVID twice.
Gosh.
And it was like really, really bad. And I realized that the environment I was in was different, yes. Now I've got this COVID thing hanging over me with some, lasting symptoms, brain fog and, black breathing issues and whatever else. And I've got this deep-rooted insecurity, which was my weight, So I picked on a lot of weight over a period of like 3 or 4 years. And I just, for the life of me, I couldn't shake it. Tried everything, diets, pills, fast routes, long routes, like you name it. Eventually, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, got a personal trainer, started training every morning. And I realized that was my business coach or exec coach or life coach, right? It was, how do I put my body into an uncomfortable state, right? Which is to train and exercise and go really hard, stay committed, create a discipline around it. And I watched that impact my ability to navigate this new environment that I was in, even though I knew that perhaps I didn't fully belong, as well as have that impact and produce some really valuable results in my personal life, how I viewed myself, how I spoke to myself, how I thought about myself, where I got my own energy from, and helped me kind of realize, I'm also in a transitioning period, going from my 20s into my 30s, and it was time for a new alignment, a new self-sync. So that resonates deeply with me. Behind that, if I go, again, another level deeper, I would attribute that to my background, my upbringing, my family circumstances, where I grew up, and all of those different things inside of that journey, which I'll pause on for the moment. But what's your story?
My gosh, there's so much to unpick there. But it was interesting that you, when you were at Visa and understanding that wasn't the right kind of role for you, I think that's something that's really important. And I harbored a lot of resentment when I used to work in the corporate environment, and I left because I thought everything was wrong with the corporate and nothing was wrong with me. Such an arrogant way to think, right? And a friend of mine calls it, there's the humbling that happens when you turn 30, where you start to understand, actually, you know what? That wasn't the right role for me. Visa obviously is an extraordinary company, but it was so smart what you said that, it didn't suit your strengths. And there are things that you need in your life, in your work environment, whatever purpose that you have. So it's kind of that's very, very important. And then touching on the sports side, I mean, obviously, for different reasons, we kind of got into sports, but you for dealing with your insecurities and your weight issues. For me, it was really strange. I got into long-distance running because I actually started using it as my closer to the mic? Okay. Oh, great. Here, I'll bring it closer. I keep rocking back and forth. It's like my mom always used to tell me, when you do that leg shaky thing, stop doing that. Exactly. And sometimes when you have your hand on the table, the whole table starts shaking at the dinner table, like elbows off the table. Or you're turning into my mother. I hope it's closer now. It's okay, right? Okay, great. But when we're talking about sports, what was really interesting for me is I was talking about insecurities. I was the skinny short kid at school, right? I'm still the skinny short kid, by the way. Not a kid so much anymore, but and I was 2 years younger than everyone, so I had a massive insecurity. Think to myself, I'm 16 going to university, and back then when you're 16 and someone's 18, that 2-year difference is a chasm, right? It's huge. It's not like now if there's a 2-year difference or a 10-year difference, it doesn't really matter so much anymore. Yeah. And sports was something where I felt like very alone. Kids in Ghana playing football, kind of doing all the kind of popular sports that we have around the world. And if you were lucky, maybe a 100-meter sprint, and people were runners. What I really wanted, and I didn't know this, what I was good at and what I actually enjoyed was long-distance running, which is not sort of tied to you being at school. You can't say I'm going for a 3-hour run, right? Obviously, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. I discovered sports later on, and it actually helped a huge part of my journey as a founder. And it was mostly my meditation. It's probably the best way to describe it. Because it's the only point in time when I'm going for a long run where I have no devices, I have nothing stopping me. And just like when you're taking a shower and you have the repetitive kind of water that's flowing through and you get your best ideas, basically, it's a similar setup for me, where as I run, for the first 15, 20 minutes, as I'm kind of getting into that pace, then all of a sudden everything becomes free. You have clarity. You're not solving your problems, but you have clarity in terms and optimism around it. And of course, you have the adrenaline hit and everything as well, too, on the back of that. So it's funny how it's two different people sitting across the table from one another, two different parts of the world, you know, a similar journey, similar relationship with sports as well too, but for two very different reasons. And one thing I was telling a friend of mine last night is, I know we keep on sitting here talking about us being founders and what we do, et cetera. This is not rocket science. You know, other people have done it before. They've fundraised, they've restructured, they've fundraised again, built products, launched products, failed with launches, picked themselves up again and continued. There is actually a format that you follow and things that you need around you, you know, a strong tribe, a strong thing that helps your mental health. For me, it's basically exercise and talking to people as well too, you know. There's certain pillars that you need to have in place in order for you to succeed, especially in an environment like this that's so difficult.
Yeah, you're like fourth, fifth person that calls that out, specifically your tribe. You know, and I always used to say that in my personal life, in my friend circle, like you are your 5 friends. You know, who are you surrounding yourself with?
And you know, you have different, for different segments of your life, you have different kind of tribes as 100%. Well too. I have those that I go to when I have work issues, you know. And the reason why I think it's very important, certainly for me it was very important, is I sat there building my business, and it was a long and horror story because, you know, building a bank in Africa is not easy. And when you're trying to get a license and deal with all that. And I kept on seeing all these news snippets of others doing something that maybe it wasn't quite the same because our business model is very different, but they were neobanks popping up left, right, and center that were getting like better traction. They were moving quicker than me, et cetera. I started getting insecure about all that. I thought, holy smokes, what am I doing wrong? You know, I made a mistake on that hire. I made a mistake on the fundraise. I made a mistake of you know, the way in which I was getting my license, et cetera. Over the last year and a half, I've been meeting founders more and more, kind of getting together with them. Those that I admired for such a long time as well too, that I watched in the periphery. Conferences like the one we're at the moment give us the opportunity to actually connect. And what happens is when you become open and you kind of drop a bit of a hint that, you know, I've struggled at this, and it resonates with them, which I would say 98% of the time it does, they then send it back to you and they tell you, we had the same problem. We faced the same issue. We made those hiring mistakes. You know, and by finding a tribe that you can resonate with and you can deal with as well too, it takes away from the loneliness of being a founder, where every single day when things are tough in the business, you know, they get less tough over time, but they also get more complicated. You're going into the office with a big smile on your face saying, yes, absolutely, I will make payroll. You know,
you're dying.
everyone's going to be okay. It's lonely, you know, it's really, really lonely. So having people around you that you can share those experiences with, it takes away that loneliness and it helps you understand that you need to trust the process. Because it has been done before. There is a format that you follow as well too. And stay true to what you believe in.
And it's also like a realignment of expectations, right? Because I think you, like when and I'm a lot newer in this journey, you know, than you are. But I certainly thought, oh my gosh, like I got this shit on lock. You know, this person's going to help me and I'm going to do this and they're going to come through for me. And like, you know, it's all going to be a bliss, man. And you realize, and several founders have repeated this to me, is that the people that you think are going to actually be there to help you are unlikely to do that.
Absolutely.
And it's those who you least expect to pull through for you and open doors and facilitate introductions and open up opportunities and like really try to drive that progress forward. And that's been, even in my short, you know, period and journey so far, it's been mind-blowing, but eye-opening in terms of, okay, well, change your expectations or lose them completely because, you know, you're building something, it's one step at a time, you're building the plane while it's flying in the air, you know, that word agility and flexibility and being nimble, like, here's where it comes into play. You know, it's no longer a buzzword you use in a sales pitch. Now it's like, it's real shit that you have to deal with, and I love that. You know, as much as it hurts and it's very stressful, very scary, and gives me lots of anxiety, it's the real world of the part of the market that my intention is to represent, you know. Have you experienced that? What's been your journey?
Absolutely, and it's so funny. And I'm just going to give you bits of anecdotes from my circle. The first thing I wanted to say is, like, I'm just managing those expectations. So there's so many people that I've helped. You know, you can facilitate introductions too. And then things might happen out of that introduction, and then years go by, you don't know anything, so there's no kind of follow-on. And then you find out, you know, either in a press release or whatever, that something fantastic happened, and that person never thanked you. I know that sounds strange, but I've had that many times before because we're all well connected and in a small world, everyone kind of knows one another.
100%.
And if I like you, if I trust you, if I believe in what you're doing, and you ask me for help, it is my obligation as an African that's supporting another
support you.
African, 100%.
Yeah.
Because we win in this together, right?
Exactly.
We're growing the pie. There's none of that scarcity mentality. So what I've done now, and I have a handful of people who've been absolutely incredible to me, by the way, and as you said, they're the ones that I least expected. I have a tracker for all intros that I get made through people, and when things follow through and come through in the end, I always reach out to them and I thank them and say, by the way,
So
you remember you
important.
connected me with that person 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. They don't really want anything like that. When I make an intro, it's nothing more other than it didn't work out, so I can refine my process. Or thank you so much. This is what we're considering as well too. And then please, pay it back to someone else. When you're at a
100%.
role and are able to make an introduction like that as well too. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk through in terms of managing expectations. It's so funny. I was with an investor last year when we were starting to think through our fundraise and the whole market was melting. And I was like, okay, we're going to put our budgets together. We're going to do all that sort of stuff, and we're going to go out with our forecasts. He looked at me, very prominent investor, one of my investors. He leaned in, and he's the big boss, and he looked at me and he goes, budgets are bullshit. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, look, companies never, ever, meet their targets. What's going to happen with you is you're going to make no money for a long time, and then all of a sudden, you're going to make a lot of money. It's that hockey stick, right? So if you think it's going to be a linear line, bullshit. But to sit there and to think that an investor was telling me this, that whenever we look at an investment and we look at forecasts, we never believe it.
Yeah.
It's do you have the tenacity that you need in order for you to actually succeed? Do you have product fit? And can we give you the muscle you need to actually get there and get the growth? That's important.
Yeah.
Another investor as well too of mine told me something that I use all the time now. Great guy. It's very easy to be rich on Excel. You're sitting there putting forecasts together and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be making $15 million next year or whatever it is. Maybe eventually will, hopefully we will as well too. We've been going on for and building our business and launch last year, and knock on wood, it's going well. But it's very easy to forecast good numbers, right?
100%.
And you're going to miss all those targets.
Yeah.
So manage your expectations now.
Yep.
So I have an end goal and what I want to do. I don't have a timeline for it.
Yeah.
What I focus on, because you're beholden to others that may be holding their fate in their hands.
Yeah.
What I do recommend though is being fully aware of all your options. Because as and when things don't work out, it's time for you to pivot and think, okay, this is the end goal. There are 10 ways to get there. This is the one that makes the most sense right now from a cost perspective, a risk perspective, a capacity perspective, whatever you have, right, on top of that. And if it doesn't work, you try the next one and the next one, you keep on going. But keep on creating those options and keep on creating and trying to understand what those options are that you can pivot towards too.
Yeah. I think that's so important, specifically for other founders, right? Less so investors, because we'll get to that later. But I mean, on the founder side, okay,
Our
yes,
coffees are
please,
here.
coffee. Incredible. Did you get your water, by the way?
Not yet. Service is terrible here. I didn't mean it. I was kidding.
Whose coffee is it?
Vasilicia's.
Which one?
The chocolate.
The chocolate one. The coffee is Nikhil's. Okay, no, you have to open that first. There's a sticker on.
Okay.
That looks complicated. It's way above my pay grade.
Yeah, you just have to peel the sticker off and then stick the straw in.
That doesn't make sense. Why did they do it that way?
Because they put it on a bike when they deliver it so that it doesn't spill.
Oh. Wow, fancy.
Thank you. And some water.
Yes, what on?
Coffee at 6 p.m. Good gosh, you're not sleeping tonight.
Coffee is life.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
life, I know, but I can't drink it after 11 o'clock, doctor's orders. Wait till you hit 40, it's fun. When everything starts moving south and your blood pressure starts going up.
I need the coffee to stay awake till 2 o'clock in the morning to do
Am I
all the work.
boring you that much? Is that why you need the coffee? Come on.
Okay, I'm just going to put this here and hope for the best. Oh no, this is leaking. Let me get that away from the equipment. Cool. Do you have a tissue somewhere? Do you have one in your bag? Okay.
Well, we'll clean it up afterwards.
Yeah, I
Fine.
just didn't want to mess anything up.
Sometimes I do this, like I use the straw.
resourceful.
Wow, it's like proper upcycling.
When I say I, bring generalists on board.
Yeah. What's your specialty? Straw packaging mopper upper.
Clean up after Miranda's mess.
Chief officer. Yeah.
That's so funny. So a friend of ours made us some of these branded mugs. And on Prelin's mug it said CFO. Chief Football Officer. Funny. Anyway,
I hope that makes the cut. Are we allowed to swear on your podcast?
You can do what you want to do.
Oh, awesome.
There
was a New York Times article that said that people who swear are more trustworthy.
Yeah,
so since then, I've been swearing a lot. I'm kidding.
Smarter. I was going to say, that's so important what you said around, it's really easy to sell the dream, and I think that's where a lot of, in today's trending topic of fintech funding, I think that's a big disconnect. And I don't think that, at face value, it looks great from both sides. But when you dig deeper, when you get into that actual process, what a freaking shit show.
It's disgusting. And also, I was so deep into Affinity that I was like, wow, no turning back now. I have a team of 100 people. I was like, I want to close shop and move. I'm tired. I want the easy life. When you do these talks, like the one I did earlier on, you have a ton of aspiring founders in the audience that come up to you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like how I used to be before I started this business. And then the first thing they say is oh gosh, we want to be founders too because it's so glamorous because they see the good results and they don't see anything beyond that.
Yeah.
The first thing I say, thank you. The first thing I say is absolutely, being a founder is fantastic. Do you like it when someone rams their hand all the way down your throat and rips your insides out every single day for the rest of your life? If the answer is yes, become a founder.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's no easy walk. And
Yeah.
I thought, in the beginning it was and again, very early in my journey, so I am still, super excited. I remain positive, but it's also because I know what I'm doing. I'm not out just selling a dream. I know what it takes. I know that it's the hard work. I mean, we've really chosen the dirty graft that nobody likes to do, but it has to happen in order for the ecosystem to be successful.
You're necessary.
Thank you. At least I have a place in the world. That's great. Thanks for validating that. But it's also very, very, very scary. And yes, as much as it's liberating and it is powerful, and, for me, I'm trying to particularly encourage other females, African female founders, to vocalize what they need, vocalize how they're doing it, but also talk about their own journeys and businesses and that kind of thing, right? Which is a big driver for me. That does not take away from the fact that I have, again, in the short period of time, seen a huge power dynamic shift. Right? From when I would talk to someone or engage with someone or reach out to someone or attend an event in my visa role versus I'm the founder of Scale. Okay, what is Scale? What do you do? Do we care? You'll get some attention in real time. Is there any follow through? Probably not. Sometimes there is, and that's great. But how did you manage the power shift if you have experienced that at all?
Oh, I know.
And how do you feel about that?
So I feel like there are a couple of caveats that need to happen first and foremost, okay? Because I'm hyper aware of my privilege as well too. I have never been in the shoes of a female founder. Obviously, I don't identify as female. And then the second thing as well too is, until my mouth opens and people know my name, et cetera, they don't realize that I'm actually Arab. They automatically assume that I'm white. So I come into this basically with a ton amount of privilege. Having said that, I saw a seismic shift when I moved from working for one of the largest hedge funds in the world, where everyone wanted to be my friend, to building my own startup, where I couldn't lead with the fact that I worked for the largest hedge fund in the world. All of a sudden, it was me on my own. There wasn't a business. There was a shiny presentation, and I was going around knocking on people's doors, asking for money, and it was debilitating. It was very, very lonely. But the one thing that happened, and there probably should be a name for this graph, basically. And I'm sure I heard the term founder's amnesia the other day, which I thought was interesting. We're going to coin the phrase at the end of this call. We're going to coin this phrase. But the graph that I'm talking about is sort of your expectations as you're pitching to investors, right? Because you're sitting there pitching to investor tries to poke holes in your business, right?
Yeah.
And when you leave and they can't poke holes into your business, but they don't invest, two things happen, right? you build conviction. So you're like, oh, actually, this is a valid idea, an extra data point, but they don't invest, right? Then you go to the next meeting, they try and poke holes. Again, they can't, or they might help you refine if you're very lucky and you have a good conversation. I still have those conversations with investors, potential investors, by the way, as well, too.
Yeah.
But what happens over time is you keep on getting rejected. So the perception from an investor until you actually launch and you don't have any traction, it's flat.
Yeah.
But your conviction keeps on going up.
Yeah.
And that delta between the two causes quite a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, it does.
Because, by the time you've had your 100th investor that's rejected you, and has told you no because you have a stupid idea. I mean, they don't literally say that, but or they tell you, sorry, we're not going to invest because we don't believe in the fit or whatever. But best of luck. I'm sure it's going to work out anyway, right? You get rejection letters like that.
You can invest in my fund if you like.
Yeah. So what ends up happening in that scenario is you're building conviction as you're going along. You're refining your model, you're refining your thinking and all that. But then the observation from the investor stays flat.
Yeah.
Until obviously you launch and you get traction, and then all of a sudden you get better responses, and it does become easier over time.
Yeah. And I mean, recently, so I was in when I was at the summit in Lusaka, I sat on also a great podcast, was recorded live, and the topic was, is Fintech the one true vertical of the tech ecosystem in Africa? I found it so interesting, right? But something that came out quite clearly through the engagement with the audience and, some of the panelists' feedback was just this perception around Fintech. And we can dive a little bit deeper into how you position Affinity, right? But this perception around Fintech and the value that it delivers within an ecosystem, the true value, versus how much of funding has gone into it and the lack of result. And my view on that was, okay, but is there a deep enough understanding of the environments that these businesses are expected to flourish in? And what was the environment of both the industry, the globe, and the continent at the point of that fintech boom, and are we relatively thinking about it in today's process of raising money or launching businesses or looking at products and solving problems?
So, first of all, I mean, the term fintech is so open-ended, right? Yeah. What is a fintech? It could be just a website, or it could be a regulated entity as well, too. Someone made a claim the other day that, they were launching a climate fund, and I just kind of semi-rolled my eyes, thinking to myself, of course you are, because now that's what's fashionable and where you can raise money to. And then I asked what they were investing in, and they said, oh, this business that does solar paneling. And I was like, oh, I mean, that historically used to be called an energy fund, right? Yeah. Now, why is it all of a sudden a climate fund? Because it's, what's in fashion right now and where you can fundraise. It is, exactly. So I think the thing with fintech as well, too, is it depends. Let's define what it is. Is it payments? Is it a front end? Is it an aggregator? Is it a marketplace? Is it a bank? Is it a neobank? Is it a lender? Is it a savings platform, investment platform? Is it a stock exchange? I don't know. It could be like a million one things, insurance, et cetera, as well. So I think that's sort of like a bit of it's quite nuanced, and that's a bit of kind of clarity that needs to happen. The second kind of variable to look at as well, too, is which part of the world. I'm assuming we're talking about our part of the world in Africa, right? I think one of the biggest disconnects in terms of value addition, if you look at not just, if you want to define value as basically making money, very important, businesses can thrive, especially payments industries in our part of the world. But if you're talking in my part of the fintech space, which is basically financial inclusion, it's hard because you're building something that's specifically a solution to an African problem. And the funders, historically, certainly the last few years, especially the US VCs, et cetera, are pouring money into our part of the world. But what they want is a replica of what has worked in the global north. They want the Amazon of Africa. Yeah. They want the Monzo of Africa. They want all that, which is fine. That's what they understand and know. Yeah. They don't understand our part of the world. The money comes from there as well, too. But the difficulty there is that if you're saying that you're doing financial inclusion and building that, a lot of those kind of platforms might be financially successful, but they may not add value in terms of what they actually were set out to do. Yeah. And I think in our part of the world, there's a big disconnect there, and it has to do where the power comes from. If we were in charge of our own money, if we were the LPs and the funds here as well to ourselves, we would go into meetings with very informed discussions. I mean, we've raised money from VCs, but the ones now in this difficult environment that are investing in us are those that understand the problem, have experience in Africa, and certainly who have an impact lens as well too that they look at.
I love to hear that, because I think more of those are needed.
Look, it existed before the fintech boom. I started this journey a while ago, and those were my connections. So it was tough. Those investors are risk averse, so they don't take startup risk. So VCs have a very important role to play there as well too.
Yeah.
But what's very important is that I can lean back on those contacts that I had, and we close our round now because those are the investors that invested in us. And those are people who've had experience on our part of the world for 20 plus years and have seen it before. Have seen what has worked, what hasn't worked, and they also know what the problems are and how you solve for them. They're not worried about the fact that we have physical touch points as a digital company. We're not app-based only, because if you do something like that, you're killing off like 85% of the market, right?
That's so interesting.
It's complicated.
It is complicated, and it's also like, it makes me think, okay, but how do we educate other founders around this? Because there's so many established fintechs across this region that have really solid products, solid go-to-markets, solid customer acquisition, great business plans. They got the P&L intact, and they either just can't access the right types of investment. In some cases, those are language barriers. Like I talk about Francophone. We often find feedback coming in that says, well, the investors just steer clear because they can't speak French. They don't understand this market, and it's so diverse from Anglophone speaking West Africa, But and I said it earlier on, when I was talking about finding gaps in the creator space. Like, how do you educate and bring awareness to those that exist in a market? Do you go out there, big bang, make a lot of noise and hope that you attract them? Or do you low-key, put your head down, build your business, try and bootstrap wherever you can, solve for funding requirements through strategic partnerships as opposed to raising VC money? Because there's a whole, other lens that a lot of these fintechs look at that through. Like, how do you educate?
Gosh, is it our job to educate?
It should be.
Really?
Part of it.
Okay.
I feel so.
Interesting. So, I guess it's a number of things, and all options need to be explored. And the real answer is actually time. It takes time for this to happen, and it takes fingers being burnt for it to happen as well too. Because as an investor coming into our part of the world and thinking we're going to take all this risk, this company is going to knock it out of the park, and they're going to replicate what we've seen in the US quite quickly in Ghana, they will burn. And what they'll understand is, hey, if we want to invest in this market, we have to think through a different strategy and make an effort to understand. So I think there's definitely an element of that, and we're beginning to see some of that right now, as you know, in our part of the world. Yeah. So I think there's definitely an element of that. The second, actually, in terms of de-risking, and I'm putting my investor hat on now, it probably makes sense for investors outside of our sphere to invest via investors within our sphere. So instead of basically investing directly into the business, let them be a fund of funds into local VCs, 100%. Where you have someone that understands the market, whatever it is, and that will be able to kind of take you through that journey. That will happen over time. And then the third, which is sort of the utopia, is we don't need to depend. The capital flows come from within ourselves, right? Yeah. That's the ideal scenario. Unfortunately, even Europe depends on the US, right? It's the biggest kind of place where VC money comes from. So I think it's a balance of all three of them, and it takes time for that to happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of founders going out there and being the ones who are responsible, it's hard. And, half the time now, I do due diligence before someone offers a call. I see what's in their portfolio, and I know right away that it's going to be a waste of my time to have a conversation with them. Yeah. And when you get on a call, I become so kind of used to it, within seconds whether or not somebody's actually going to invest and what they're telling you and all that. It kind of you kind of build resilience that way, and you become a bit hardened in a good way, not disillusioned, but hardened in a good way. And it takes time, but it happens.
Do you have any founder friends?
Founder friends? Who you mean founders that invested in my business, or friends who are founders as well too? Oh, tons, loads. Yeah, I mean you're one of them, no?
But do you ever compete?
No, of course not. Yeah. Look, actually, I'm going to lie to you. I lie to you there. In the early stages of my journey, I actually thought I would compete with them. Okay. So I kind of held my cards very close to my chest. Yeah. About a year and a half ago, I started. You remember how I said we the OG kind of people who've been around for quite a long time, right? Everyone was kind of very close to didn't really want to talk or share experiences, etc. Over the kind of last year and a half, one person in particular, I kind of reached out to them, had a very open discussion with them on WhatsApp, and we hadn't spoken for a while. They responded back and had a very vulnerable conversation with me as well too, in a good way, you know. And now we're constantly chatting to each other and supporting one another and making intros. Yeah. But it came from a place of scarcity where we were worried that if I give away too much, only one of us can succeed, which is a terrible thing that we do a lot in our part of the world. You know, whereas it comes in abundance in the rest of the world because there's tons of opportunities. There are less so here. There's only that VC that's going to invest in one African company. There's only one founder that can succeed in every market.
Yeah.
But what's happening over the last few years, things have changed. And for us old people who've been around for a while, we're changing as well too. We had to. Part of that journey of finding a tribe and realizing that everyone's making the same mistakes was me kind of opening up a bit more as well too. And I think over time it's going to get much easier.
Yeah.
It's still very low penetration. There are not many founders out there, but it will happen over time and it will get better.
Yeah. And are the majority of those in Ghana? Like, what's the cultural differences between you and your tribe?
There are a couple in Ghana that I met recently, well, actually through the visa cohort program, which is kind of cool.
Congratulations
so we're
on
in
that,
conversation.
by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Incredible.
Yeah, you know about it, right?
Very proud of you. Of course I do.
Well, you were the one who recommended you were the one who recommended that we apply for it. So thank you for that. So it was great because we met some local founders, which is pretty amazing. But most of the founders that I speak to are actually, some are European, most are Pan-African. And there are a few now that are actually based in Ghana.
Yeah. Tell me about the Accelerator.
It's been really fun. It was for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, we've never been through an Accelerator program before, so all the jargon now is demystified for me. People. I mean, when I first met you, we were talking through all the stuff around payments. I just sat there. I was actually Googling half the stuff underneath the table, so I could have a decent conversation with you and not pretend I didn't know what I was talking about. So now that I know what an Accelerator program is, that's pretty cool, for the old guy in the room. But the one thing that I've said that it's added a lot of value is understanding all the products that Visa offer, and hopefully we can do something together. But meeting other founders and partnering with them has been very important. And also, it's actually been really good for morale. It's a difficult environment. To have someone sort of acknowledge the work that you're doing, it gives you that energy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being an athlete, right? You're running a marathon, you're getting low of energy, and that one person in the audience starts clapping and says your name out.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, all of a sudden you have a burst of energy. You're like, yeah, I can do this, That's basically what it is. Not just for me, but 2 team members joined us for the kickoff in Nairobi, and it was kind of fun for all of us to be there together and to see us all kind of be together and work on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, getting into Visa's first cohort is such an incredible accomplishment. Very proud of you and your
Thank
team.
you.
And I hope that it does, continue to drive you forward and opens up a lot more in terms of where the business can go. Because I think it can go far and wide and across the continent and global, to be honest. Because it's not just Africa that has emerging markets, right? And underserved, underbanked people and people who need to save and invest and learn more around how to manage their finances through both sides of that ecosystem. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of Affinity.
Thank you.
And you deserve it.
Thank you.
What else did you do in Nairobi, by the way?
What else did I do in Nairobi? I flew in, did it for 2 days, and I left. Because I had a couple of days and I had to head to Ghana. And then back to the UK and then here. I've been traveling quite a bit. But I love Nairobi. It's such a wonderful city. It's probably my 10th time there.
Yeah.
And my 20th time now in Cape Town as well too. I love our continent.
Yeah, me too.
It's so full of
many
hope.
gems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And 10 years ago when I moved back, and there were a lot of people returning back as well too, in particular with Ghana and the creative space and elsewhere, this didn't exist.
Yeah.
Walking in and seeing founders helping each other and helping themselves, and African investors helping founders, and founders investing in startups. So I have founders that have invested in us, through which is really amazing. And look, it's not much money. Then a VC could give you a lot more, but that one acknowledgement, validation, that one ability that once in a while you can WhatsApp a founder and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. And they were like, no, we tried it, it didn't work for these reasons. So consider them in your ideation. Or, oh yeah, I'm so sorry that you messed up on that one thing. We did the exact same thing a few years ago, and it didn't work out for us either. You think to yourself, fantastic. It wasn't me. It's part of the process as well too.
Yeah, I mean, you did that for me.
Did I?
I really, really appreciate that. I mean, I called you the once, I WhatsApped you and I said, hey, can you talk? I need a minute. It's an emergency. And you called me and I said, I've got this situation with this client and can you give me some advice? How should I navigate this? And am I thinking realistically or not? And, that was really helpful for me in the moment because at that point, I had nobody else that I could call that could guide me from the other side of the table, you know? So I really appreciate that. And just
No, you're
thank
welcome. See,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I didn't even know. I was in Dubai. I remember that. When I took that call.
Authentic.
Yeah. I don't even remember it, but I'm glad it was useful. I often say that I don't give advice. I just share my experience, and you can take whatever you want from it.
You said that to me on the
So
phone.
important.
I'm like, yeah, but you give me advice. Like,
No, I can't. I have to caveat it because what works for me might not work for you, you know.
Yeah. You just
But I can
can't
share my
caveat with, like,
experience.
I don't know, though.
And then you can take whatever you want out of it. But as I said, I'm old. I've been around the block a few times. I'm kidding.
Which block?
Yeah, stop it. Stop
Cape
it.
Town,
Behave.
And where's your family and stuff? Are they in the UK? Are they in Ghana?
No, they're in Ghana. They're in Ghana. I still have like a UK nexus, but they shipped us all off to three of us, two brothers and myself, to the UK to school.
Okay.
My brothers hated it.
So you're born in Ghana?
I was born in Ghana, yes.
Okay.
So my brothers hated it, and they moved back to Ghana right away. My parents never left Ghana. You know, they shipped us off to the UK on our own.
Yeah.
Well, our grandparents kind of looked after us, who retired from Ghana to the UK. It's a bit complicated. Anyway.
Okay.
So I left university, and I thought I don't want to go back to Ghana. I want to work in the UK. And about 10 years ago, my mom encouraged me to come back to Ghana to send the ladder back down, basically.
Yes.
And my dad was like, "Aren't you going to come back here and help people? You
Yes.
know,
Dad.
you've collected this wonderful pedigree of jobs and, you know, accolades or whatever, university, et cetera. Come do something meaningful with your life now, you know."
Dad, you're going to invest in me, Dad?
He did, actually.
Well
he
done,
did.
Dad.
Yeah. This was not prefixed. He did. It's so
that's
funny because
awesome.
an investor the other day asked for my cap table. You're doing due diligence on us. And you're
Dad.
like, "Who's this person with your same surname?" I was like, "It's actually my dad." And you were like, "What?" I was like, "Yep."
Yeah.
He actually gave me some really good advice. I was going through a difficult time. And he said to me, "What do you need to solve this?" I was like, "Money." And he goes, "Okay, then just like solve it with money and get over it, you know, because if it's gonna take months for you to solve it with that money, that's going to be a huge drain of your resources and an opportunity cost." He was like, "Solve it with money, let it be over in a week, you know, and then move on and keep building."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Well, I don't have any money. I put all my money in the business." He said, "I'll invest. I'll fix your problem for you. I want shares in your business."
Oh, man.
And that's how it happened.
We needed dads like that. Dad,
I know.
Come on.
I know. He's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. And your siblings, what do they do?
My youngest brother we're all entrepreneurs. My mom and dad
Awesome.
both are as well too. So my dad's built and sold 3 businesses, traditional kind of industrial businesses, and he's kind of retired now.
Yeah.
My youngest brother ended up working for my dad for a bit, and then my dad sold the business. My brother retained a small share, and now he sold his shares and started his own business.
Nice.
It's sort of in the refurb and fitting space for like kitchens, you know, homes.
cool.
Real estate development and stuff.
Yeah.
My brother's a mechanical engineer, my middle brother.
Awesome.
So he loves cars. So he has some of the,
Shout out.
he's great actually.
Okay,
I'll send you his Instagram post. But he is pretty incredible.
How many followers does your brother have?
He has
More than me?
quite a few.
Crap.
Quite a few, yeah. He's, no, you know.
What car does he drive?
He doesn't actually drive a car. He drives a motorcycle, a Ducati.
Ooh. Oh,
Yeah, I
can't
know.
compete there.
I know. I hear it quite often in the morning.
Yeah.
So we live in the same building.
Oh, yeah? You hear
Apartment
it
above
start?
each other. Yeah, I know. But he does like high-end cars mostly, a lot of like
Awesome.
renovations and refurbs and
Dude, in
stuff like
Ghana?
that. In Ghana, yeah.
There's a big car scene in Ghana?
Yeah, and you know it's kind of hard because if you buy a high-end car, you know there are not many kind of dealerships and stuff. So he started off addressing a small part of the market with like a business with like 4 bays, you know, the hydraulic thing where they lift the car up and whatever.
Yeah.
Then he started going kind of a bit deep, so buying all this electronic stuff where he can, all the electronic dashboards, he can sort everything out and kind of all these like high-end computers.
Yeah.
And now he moved into a new space, and he has about 20 bays, and he's looking to expand outside of Accra as well too.
Wow.
And do like
Awesome.
a subscription method, which is kind of cool. My mom is a serial entrepreneur as well too. She set up a couple of businesses, and now kind of focuses on philanthropy mostly, and also looking after my grandparents who are still alive and aging.
Wow.
I know,
That's
I know,
incredible.
I know. Very lucky.
Are they back in Ghana now?
They retired. So they retired the first time around and went to the UK.
Okay.
And then they retired after that and actually went to Lebanon. So both my grandmothers live in Lebanon at the moment.
Okay.
And my parents shuttle
your
back and
heritage.
forth. Yeah, that's my
Amazing.
heritage,
Okay.
exactly.
Awesome.
And
Nice
they
food.
shuttle back and forth. It is very good food. Maybe one day I'll cook for you. Yes,
Yeah, I'd
of
love
course I
that.
can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so Family of Entrepreneurs, very, very cool. It's not often that I hear that actually. But yeah, let's talk about a bit about Affinity.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. Love it. Congrats again on
Thank
the
you.
Accelerator. But what is it? How does it work? What's been the journey?
Absolutely. So let me start off by actually telling you why we exist, because that's sort of what drives us and why I've been able to convince other people to join us on this journey as well too, not just investors, team members, and obviously getting our license in Ghana too, which was a huge win for us. We got the first license grant this month will be 10 years ago, was the last license was granted. So it was a huge win for us. When I quit my job in the UK and moved back to Ghana, I knew that I wanted to help kind of build some level of prosperity within our parts of the world. We come from very fragile economies, right? And one of the biggest drivers of socioeconomic growth are actually small businesses. So I left the UK. The UK, as an example, 60% of employment come from SMEs, and 47% of revenue, government revenue, is generated through SMEs, so through taxation. If you take a look at our part of the world, with OECD countries, the tax to GDP ratio is about 33%. It's 16% in Africa. We are the lowest tax-paying continent in the world. And if you take a look at countries with high extractives, so South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, our tax to GDP ratio is as low as like 6 to 8% because it's a very small taxpayer base.
Yeah.
Because it's a highly informal sector.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that we face, it's sort of like this amazing opportunity, actually, it's not a problem, we shouldn't call it a problem, is the world is shrinking. Populations are declining in Asia, in Europe, in the US, and Africa is booming. We've got 1.1 billion people, 60% are under the age of 24, which is incredible. We're forecast to go to 2.3 billion by 2050. Jobs need to be created to make sure that everyone's okay. And jobs are created by SMEs.
Yep.
And the only option you have in order to actually nurture these SMEs, you have two options. Encourage formalization.
Yeah.
So that micro enterprise that's selling tomatoes on the side of the road, how do we get them to a point where they're actually manufacturing tomato paste?
100%. Yeah.
And then on top of that, these small SMEs, businesses that are already kind of employing people, how do you actually grow them so they employ more people?
Yep.
So that was sort of the crux of the whole thing with Affinity. And it will not come as a surprise to you what lacks them, and the reason why this doesn't happen is because there was a lack of financial services.
Yeah.
And the stats are astronomical. It's like 330 billion lending gap. In Ghana alone, it's about 9.5 billion, 400 million adults without bank accounts in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm not even including North Africa here, by the way. So we started this journey a while ago, and it was actually to build a digital bank. It had to be digital because access was important. These customers of ours, they work 100 hours a week. It's nuts. So if you're telling them go and queue at a bank for a couple of hours, they won't do it.
Yeah.
And the big issue there is the minute they step up and leave their place of work, revenue goes to zero.
100%. Yeah,
right? So that's why they sit on cash.
Yeah.
So you have to solve for them in their journey as well too, and that's very important.
Yeah.
The second thing is affordability. It's not just convenience, it's affordability as well too. Banking is expensive. It's for rich people.
Yeah.
The richer you are, the more options you have in life.
Yep.
It's really quite crazy.
Yeah.
In our part of the world, it's even more emphasized as well too.
And that middle section is actually paying for the...
Of course, absolutely, absolutely. And banks were invented in the global north.
Yep.
And then they were, again, cut and paste. How those VCs want the Amazon of Africa. Banks came to our part of the world and were like, what do you mean you don't have addresses?
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have? Well, okay, great. Well, you can't be a customer of ours.
Yeah.
That's it. Full stop. We're not going to serve you. You're not profitable enough.
Yeah.
Which is a huge myth as well, too.
Yeah.
Some wonderful innovations spurred, like obviously microfinance and mobile money. But what was really missing in the space is actually full-fledged banking.
Yeah.
So being able to provide current accounts, savings accounts, and investment products, as well as personal loans and business loans. That was very important. So we set off to do this, and it had to be affordable, so we had to manage our costs. And to manage our costs and provide the convenience, we used technology as a way of basically delivering that. The most difficult thing about the journey was actually getting the license. I mean, I probably just jinxed myself now because we only launched a year ago. I'm sure there are tons of other difficult things that are going to happen. But the license was a big issue because, when you're raising money from investors, they want traction, right?
Absolutely.
How do you have traction if you don't have a license?
Yeah.
You can't go and start lending and opening bank accounts for people without a license.
Yes.
So it's sort of a binary thing, right? And that's something that's kind of very important to understand. So I tried to get the license twice, failed both times. Very complicated reasons. Re-regulation. Also, there was an Ebola scare in West Africa, and everyone thought that we were going to get Ebola in Ghana. And by everyone, I mean investors.
Yeah.
What I had to explain to them is actually harder to fly from Ghana to Sierra Leone than it is to fly from London to Sierra Leone, by the way, to Freetown.
Yeah.
But they don't want to hear those sort of things. But anyway, so we lost the license again at that point. So I packed my stuff up, moved to the UK, packed my house in the UK, sold it, and bought a microfinance business in Ghana.
Wow.
That's how we entered the market. Huge amount of risk.
Yeah.
I could still lose everything, but all my money's in there. But what was very important when we bought this microfinance business is we weren't allowed to launch an app yet. We needed the full banking license.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to also have any current accounts, but we were allowed to start banking some of our customers and giving small loans to them. And it afforded us to do two things: get to know how our customers, what the relationship was with technology and financial services. It was data, it was design-centered thinking, it was really trying to understand how we could deliver a product for them. We spent 4.5 years building, not because it took that long to build. We were building more and more products because that's how long it took for us to get the banking license. But once we built all that and we launched the product in October 26, 2022, we launched our first product. Our second product will be launched next week, which is great, which is super exciting. But we have a year of data now. With no marketing spend, we've acquired 30,000 accounts.
Sure.
It's really kind of crazy. 90% of our customers were their primary bank account because they were using cash until we came along.
Yeah.
And what's also very important is we've helped savers save $26 million to date and provided $13 million worth of loans.
That's insane.
It's nuts. And our products are free. No monthly fees, no charges, and interest across all accounts. So it's very important. We make the money basically from lending. So to touch on the final point that I was talking to you about as well too, and the why, why we're all motivated to fix this problem, not because it's sort of a duty. You're kind of creating employment. You're building
building economy.
100%, and it's an issue here in South Africa and elsewhere as well too. Small businesses need to thrive.
Yeah.
That's how corporates are made. They all started off as small
100%.
businesses, right?
I agree.
And they're the biggest employer base.
Yeah.
But just to give you a couple of anecdotes there. So the first thing is, in order for you to actually provide the loans that businesses want, you need to manage your costs, right?
Yeah.
Because the cost of a loan that you give out is your cost of funding.
Yeah.
How much are you borrowing for? How much does it cost to actually deliver that loan, so your operating costs? And what is the cost of risk? So not just operational risk, but
Are
also
you gonna
credit
pay back?
risk as well too. Exactly, which is very important. But obviously there's fraud issues and stuff.
Yeah.
Operational risk beyond just credit risk as well. You have to be
Yeah.
aware of all of them. If you can manage all those three things, you can reduce your cost base. You can actually provide affordable loans.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we've done at Affinity. So a
Incredible.
typical lender, digital lender, it's short term. It's $100. It's 7 days, 21 days most. 10% interest a month. Our average loan size last month was $6,500, so much higher for smaller businesses.
Insane.
And our terms are up to 2 years. So these are loans that we're providing to customers they're using those loans to actually invest in their business to grow.
To build a sustainable long-term
100%.
business.
And to give you the kind of high level impact,
Yeah.
we've seen our average borrower grow their revenue by 500% and their employment base go by 350%.
Wow, that's really
That's the power of financial inclusion,
Yeah.
and affordable financing. And that lending gap that everyone talks about, the $331 billion that everyone talks about, it's not a niche product. It's not basically a payday loan. It's not a digital loan, a consumer loan, or
not
whatever.
advance.
It's not. Those products exist in the global north because people have poor credit history. They exist in our part of the world because consumers, businesses don't have a choice.
Yeah.
What really, that big gap, it's a niche product. That big gap, the 90% of that $330 billion is actually growth capital, which is what we're addressing.
Yeah. And just practically in the market, because you've got a really special touch point with your customers, how are you accessing your customer base? How are you educating them on uptake? How are you
Very important.
telling them about it? How are you creating trust
Yeah.
and breaking down some of that barrier of utilization?
So a huge part of our success has actually been off of mobile money.
Yeah.
So mobile money has done a great job at basically educating our customers, and we're a very complementary product to mobile money.
Yeah.
So we basically bank individuals who have mobile money accounts, but we sit there as sort of like the core. And if you think about it as like a flower and a petal, right? You've got the middle, which is kind of our bank account. Then you have all these products. You have like an ATM usage, which is sort of what mobile money is. You can transfer money from your Affinity account to MTN and withdraw cash. That's something that's
At
kind
an
of very
agent.
important, exactly, at an agent. So what happens with us is we come along and we say, would you like an account using our own proprietary agents? And then we have full interoperability with mobile money. They can move money in and out using agents as well too. So it's
Okay.
fully connected. And that's basically, we're piggybacking off of that. And that's something that
And the
mobile,
trust that's there.
And mobile money has already done the education around financial literacy, USSD, technology literacy. And we use our agents to onboard our customers because that's our education to them. And it's a physical touch point for them to basically build trust with us as well, which is very important.
Especially if you're putting your money in somewhere and expecting it to grow.
Exactly. And now that we have a year of results, do you want to know what something that's fascinating?
Yeah,
what we've noticed is our customers give us money.
Yeah.
They then withdraw their money to make sure that they can get access to it.
Yeah.
And when they
put it
can
back.
withdraw the money, they put their money back and start growing with us.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've seen over and over again. And it's something we should have assumed because we've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating seeing that behavior. And our average customer who had an account with us a year ago, so we've been doing some aging analysis, they've grown their base by about 3 times.
Sure.
Their savings base by 3 times.
Those numbers are almost unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll give you access to our database. Promise we're not faking it.
No, but it's incredible. And, it makes me think that sometimes we just over-engineer. When some of the problems and the solutions can actually be very simple. And if we're able to connect with the human behavior and get over the sometimes misconceptions that Africans need financial education, but they download WhatsApp and they use it. No one's sitting there teaching them how to send a chat or how to use TikTok or how to record a video. And I think that we underestimate the power of some of the more basic technology and solutions that we have.
And you have to see the power of it as well too in a difficult market like this where inflation's so high, et cetera. An affordable bank is something that people want as well. But what I also wanted to say is that it is kind of simple in the approach, but it's also very complicated because
in the background.
Well, it took us 4.5 years,
100%.
right? And then you need a banking license. So the moat or the barriers to entry are astronomical.
Yeah.
And last thing I want to say as well, too, on this customer demographic, because a lot of people kind of look at us and go, oh my God, you've got all these market women and can't believe like these deposit numbers look crazy, et cetera.
But that is the amount of cash sitting in those segments.
And also, let's be honest
have
here.
money, these mamas.
We have a history, basically, of either villainizing the informal sector for not paying taxes and doing all that stuff, or if you were like an aid worker or like one of a grant provider, or you romanticize them as well too. Let's be honest. Let's treat them for what they are. Amazing business people, entrepreneurs.
Yep.
We're not calling them founders because they haven't done a Series A, but they are founders. They're running their businesses. I gave a talk at the London Stock Exchange a couple of years ago, and there was a guy who was kind of nodding in the audience.
Yeah.
He came up to me, super bright guy. We're close friends now. Ended up going to an Ivy League university, and then ended up working for an international tech company, a very senior role. His mom was a market woman selling in Ghana and saved enough to basically send him to an Ivy League university.
Education.
Let's not also underestimate that the human spirit is indomitable. My parents were the first to go to university. They wanted to save enough for me to go to like a UK university.
Yeah.
And if I do have kids or whatever, I want them to go to an even better university and get a better education. That's what happens. You have a salary, you want more, you want growth. That's what happens when human nature kind of kicks in.
And I guess that's the lives that get touched along the way of the journey with Affinity, right? Because you're creating the initial ability to save and to become more financially savvy and learn some of the tips and tricks that other people have access to that you don't, but that gives the next generation the ability to do cool things.
Look, and we don't do any capacity building or any of that stuff, by the way. We're not telling businesses how to operate, how to be better, or, maybe we can add some value-added services in the future. We're just empowering them by giving them stuff that's affordable and enabling them to grow. We're not actually telling them grow and build, et cetera. They're doing that on themselves, right? We're just giving them the option to be able to do that.
Can you talk about your next product launch?
It's actually our app. So believe it or not, I mean, we launched our agency platform a year ago.
It's super cool app.
And
I love it.
I know. I can tell you something. We just found out this afternoon that the regulator has approved our app as well too. So super excited about that. We've been kind of going through for a year now. Thank you. So we're launching with 300 existing customers to begin with, making sure that they're happy and we give them feedback. They give us feedback. Then after that, basically pushing it out to all existing customers and then to new customers after that as well too. So we're taking a staggered approach to it so that we make sure that everything's okay.
The way it should be. That is the best way.
Worked so hard for this long, nothing can go wrong.
No,
or
absolutely.
or if things go wrong, things do go wrong. We all know that. I'm not here to kind of glorify the journey. We just need to make sure that we're like equipped to deal with them.
You can make informed decisions around
Absolutely.
how you move to try and mitigate some of that
Exactly.
uncontrolled environment.
Exactly.
But that's really awesome. What's the next phase for Affinity?
There's so much more to do in Ghana. There are a few other products that we want to launch. So at the moment, we're doing mostly SME loans. We want to do microloans as well too, that are fully automated, which is important. Payments is something that's huge.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that. Mobile money is mostly used as a remittance product in Ghana. It's like domestic remittances. So if I'm sitting there, mobile money charges are quite high as well too. But if I'm sitting there and I want to send money to my mom and she lives 2 hours away, it doesn't make any economic sense for me to go. I lose revenue and there's a cost of getting there. So I will transfer and pay that fee. However, if two people are interacting, it's a micro enterprise and I'm buying like a bottle of water from a container store and I'm standing face to face, cash will always get handed over.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity there as well too, to make sure that that is digitized for their safety, for their convenience as well too. So there are tons of other opportunities that we're trying to see how we can leverage our network and actually create that.
Awesome. I'd love to unpack this with you in a part 2.
Why don't we work together on that?
I would love to.
And then we can present the results.
Yeah. I'd
Season
love to.
2.
First guest. I promise I'll be more prepared that time. But a very big thank you to my elephant in the room.
Thank you.
I forgot to say that as my intro. My intro is going to be...
You can do that in the editing though, right? Yeah,
Oh,
there we
can
go.
we?
Yeah, very good.
Can we record it quickly?
Yeah.
No, I don't know how to do it. Go backwards now. So thank you very much to my elephant in the room. Next time I will introduce you as my elephant in the room. We love the elephant in the room. I think the elephant in the room has to be addressed, has to be given the platform, has to be given the visibility, has to succeed, and Scale will do everything in our power to ensure that you get there. So you can always count on us.
Thank you, Miranda, and congratulations on Scale, and welcome to the dark side.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.